The blizzard's knock. Usually, the aroma of pine and wood smoke offered a sanctuary within the confines of the Tanner trailer. Tonight, however, a palpable tension thrummed, echoing the crackling static from the antique radio on the counter. Ben Tanner, a man carved from sturdy oak, his hands bearing the etchings of years spent shaping metal, meticulously reinforced the window seal with duct tape. His daughter, Lily, a vibrant 10-year-old, observed him, her bright eyes reflecting the flickering lamplight. "Will that do it, Dad?" she whispered, barely audible above the gathering wind. "It'll have to," Ben grunted, his tone rough yet reassuring. This old tin can's weathered worse. Doubt gnawed at him, but he kept it hidden. Their trailer was more than just shelter. It was their hard-earned foothold in Pine Ridge. The blizzard had launched its assault outside. A gentle flurry had morphed into a swirling vortex of white fury with surprising speed. Like a ravenous predator, the wind buffeted the trailer, rattling the thin metal skin and insinuating itself through every minute gap. The world beyond the misted windows had been erased, swallowed by the tempest. Lily huddled deeper into her well-worn quilt. "Grandma used to say Pine Ridge winters were a reckoning," she murmured, almost to herself. "Grandma usually knew best," Ben agreed, a thread of sorrow lacing his voice. He longed for his mother's presence, especially now, when the elements seemed determined to test their mettle. He returned to the radio, twisting the dial. Static remained dominant, punctuated by brief, fractured reports of impassable roads and power failures. "Anything useful, Dad?" Lily's voice held a fragile hope. Ben shook his head. "Just warnings to hunker down, which suits us just fine." He manufactured a smile. "Hot chocolate, maybe? I reckon we have enough marshmallows to construct a decent barricade." Lily's face brightened, momentarily eclipsing the worry in her eyes. A marshmallow barricade sounds epic. The little kitchen, normally a haven of warmth and laughter, felt acutely vulnerable as the blizzard intensified its siege. Ben concentrated on preparing the hot chocolate, the clinking of ceramic mugs, and the sweet smell of cocoa temporarily repelling the encroaching dread. He handed Lily a steaming mug, laden with marshmallows. They sat in quiet companionship for a few moments, the storm's relentless clamor and the sporadic crackle of the radio their only company. Lily stirred her drink, watching the marshmallows perform a slow ballet. Abruptly, a sound pierced the wind's fury, a sharp, insistent rap. Ben tensed, his hand automatically drifting toward the wrench stashed under the counter. "Did you hear that?" he murmured, his gaze sharpening. Lily nodded, her face paling. "Someone's at the door." "Stay put," Ben instructed, his voice low and strained. He grabbed the wrench and cautiously approached the entrance, peering through the frosted peephole. He saw only a spinning cloud of white. He hesitated. Who would brave such weather? And why seek him out, so far from civilization? He inhaled deeply and undid the latch, leaning against the door as he eased it open a fraction, just enough to get a glimpse. A figure stood hunched against the gale, practically buried in snow. It was a woman, tall and slender, her face pale and etched with fatigue despite the layers of fur and wool concealing her. Even through the storm's veil, Ben detected a refined elegance about her. "Please," she gasped, her voice thin against the wind. "My vehicle, it failed. I require assistance." Ben paused, a heartbeat's worth of indecision. He couldn't leave anyone to face such a storm, regardless of their identity. "Get inside quickly," he yelled, swinging the door wide. The woman stumbled in, collapsing against the wall, seized by a fit of shivers. She cleared the snow from her face, revealing striking features and eyes that held an unexpected fortitude despite her evident distress. "Thank you," she said, some strength returning to her voice. "I am Eleanor Ainsworth." She extended a gloved hand, and Ben, after quickly wiping his own on his jeans, clasped it firmly. Her grip possessed surprising power. "Ben Tanner," he responded, gesturing toward Lily, who watched them with large, inquisitive eyes. "And this is my daughter, Lily." Eleanor offered Lily a weak smile. You are both incredibly kind to offer me refuge. We couldn't just leave you out there, Lily declared, her voice brimming with sincere concern. Are you injured? Just chilled to the bone, Eleanor answered, rubbing her upper arms. And profoundly thankful, she scanned the modest dwelling, her gaze absorbing every detail. The time-worn furnishings, the patched walls, the overflowing bookcase nestled in the corner. Her expression held no condescension, only quiet observation. Ben cleared his throat. Let's get you thawed out. Lily, grab another blanket, would you? As Lily hurried to locate a blanket, Ben addressed Eleanor. Tell me what occurred. Eleanor explained that she had been en route to a conference in a neighboring town when her vehicle had given up a few miles back. She had attempted to summon help, but there was no signal. She had been forced to set off on foot, hoping to encounter some haven. Ben listened attentively, his mind already whirring with potential solutions. He possessed a deep understanding of automobiles, both inside and out. What sort of vehicle is it? He inquired. A Rolls-Royce, Eleanor confessed, almost apologetically. Ben raised an eyebrow in surprise. A Rolls-Royce was an unlikely visitor to Pine Ridge. All right, he said, machinery is machinery. We'll sort something out come morning, once the storm abates. For now, let's get you warm and fed. He anticipated a long night. The blizzard showed no inclination of diminishing, and he sheltered a stranded stranger in his humble home. Yet, as he met Lily's worried gaze and Eleanor's grateful eyes, he knew he had acted correctly. He usually did. An engine of hope. The gale screamed, assaulting the trailer with renewed ferocity, and the windows shuddered violently. Ben braced against the frame's weakness, icy drafts slithering past his hand. Reinforcement was imperative. Lily's brow knitted with worry as she watched him. Papa, should you really venture out again? It's only worsening, she whispered, barely audible over the tempest's fury. He summoned a confident grin, despite a gnawing unease. Just a swift patch-up, Lilybug. Gotta keep our sanctuary snug. The snug part was a blatant fabrication, but reassurance was crucial. Eleanor remained composed on the sofa's edge, her gaze lost in the whirling white pandemonium outside. Your willingness means everything, she murmured. I wouldn't fault you if conditions prove too treacherous. Ben straightened, resolve hardening his features. Can't abandon you, ma'am. Besides, he added, attempting a dash of his customary humor, a little white squall never daunted a tanner. He snatched his heaviest coat, the threadbare material offering scant defense against the frigid assault. Lily clung to him, her small arms encircling his middle. Please, Papa, be safe. Please. Kneeling, he met her anxious gaze. I promise. I'll be back directly, warmer than sunshine on a summer's day. He kissed her forehead, feeling the weight of her anxiety pressing down. The perils were clear, yet the thought of Eleanor, helpless in her stranded vehicle, propelled him forward. Inaction was not an option. Donning his gloves and hat, he wrestled the trailer door ajar, a powerful gust nearly tearing it from his grip. The blizzard struck like a physical blow, stealing his breath and stinging his skin raw. Visibility vanished. The world collapsed into a swirling white abyss. Squinting, he used the ghostly silhouette of Eleanor's car as his beacon. Each step became a hard-fought struggle. The accumulating snow already reached his knees, and the wind threatened to topple him. He concentrated on anchoring each footfall, pushing onward with steadfast grit. The piercing cold infiltrated his layers of clothing, rendering his extremities numb. At long last, he reached the car, its graceful contours buried beneath a thick mantle of snow. He cleared the hood, revealing the Rolls-Royce emblem lurking beneath. He released the hood latch, which emitted a groan of complaint from frozen parts. The engine compartment was a frozen wasteland. Ice sheathed every component, the intricate machinery appearing impossibly complex. Ben Stanifurdalgron. He was far more familiar with the straightforward engines of trucks and tractors. This was an entirely different beast. He retrieved his meager toolbox, its contents a pathetic match against the sophisticated technology before him. He began with the fundamental checks, examining the battery connections, the the spark plugs, searching for any vulnerabilities the cold might have exploited. His fingers, clumsy and stiff, struggled with the tools. Time warped and stretched. Each minute felt like an age as he wrestled against the elements and the obstinate engine. The wind shrieked in his ears, obliterating all other sounds. Snow spiraled around him, blinding him and soaking him to the core. He labored relentlessly, fueled by determination and a stubborn refusal to succumb to the storm. He envisioned Lily, her innocent eyes and unwavering confidence in him. He pictured Eleanor, her quiet grace and the fragile hope he had glimpsed within her gaze. He could not fail them. After what seemed an eternity, he discovered a frozen fuel line, likely the source of the problem. With extreme care, he warmed it with a small lighter, his hands trembling with cold and fatigue. He reconnected the line, his heart drumming with anticipation. He slid into the driver's seat, his frozen fingers fumbling with the key. He turned the ignition, and the engine coughed, sputtered, then burst into life with a triumphant roar. The sound was pure music, a vibrant symphony of hope against the backdrop of the raging tempest. Gratitude and a promise. Ben hurried back inside, the wind clawing at his exposed skin. He slammed the trailer door shut, the flimsy frame rattling in protest. He grabbed the duct tape from the counter and began reinforcing the window seal he'd patched earlier, his breath clouding the glass. The storm wasn't letting up. If anything, it felt angrier, more determined to tear their little world apart. Lily was asleep on the sofa, curled under a thick quilt. Eleanor sat in the armchair, her gaze fixed on the swirling snow visible through the window. The kerosene lamp cast long, dancing shadows across her face, highlighting the lines of fatigue and worry etched there. He finished taping the window. Hopefully, that will hold for a little while longer. Eleanor turned, a faint smile gracing her lips. Thank you, Ben. I don't know how to properly express my gratitude. He shrugged, wiping his hands on his jeans. Just glad I could help. How's the car doing? It started right up, he replied, glancing out the window, apprehension tightening his gut. He crossed to the stove, putting the kettle on. There, please, she said softly. That would be lovely. While the kettle whistled, Ben glanced at Lily. He hoped she wouldn't wake up to the storm. The last thing he wanted was for her to be scared. He poured hot water into 2 mugs and added a splash of milk to Eleanor's, remembering her preference from earlier. He handed her the mug. Here you go. Careful, it's hot. Eleanor took a sip, closing her eyes for a moment. This is perfect. Thank you. She wrapped her hands around the mug, as if drawing warmth from it. You know, I've met very few people who would have gone to such lengths for a stranger, especially in these conditions. Ben sat down on the edge of the armchair opposite her. Well, you weren't just any stranger. You were stranded, and Lily would never have let me live it down if I left you out there. He paused, a wry smile playing on his lips. Besides, my conscience wouldn't have let me live with that either. Eleanor chuckled softly. Lily is a very persuasive young lady. She set her mug down on the small table beside her. Ben, you have no idea how much this means to me. I was truly beginning to think I would be stuck here for days, maybe even longer with this storm. I'm just glad I could help, Ben said again, feeling a warmth spread through him despite the biting wind howling outside. I insist on repaying you, Eleanor said, her voice firm. You've saved me a great deal of trouble, and I won't forget it. Ben waved his hand dismissively. Don't worry about it. Seriously, just pay it forward, you know? Help someone else out when you get the chance. Eleanor shook her head, her eyes glinting in the lamplight. That's very noble of you, Ben, but I can't. I simply won't. You've done me a great service, and I intend to reciprocate. Consider it a debt of honor. Ben shifted uncomfortably. He wasn't used to people owing him things, especially not people like Eleanor. He was content with his simple life, with providing for Lily. He didn't need anything more. There's really no need, he started to say, but Eleanor cut him off. Please, Ben, allow me this. I know you don't want anything, but believe me, there will come a time when you need something. And when that time comes, I want you to call me. Anything at all, no matter how big or small. Promise me you will. Ben hesitated. He looked at her, searching her eyes. There was a sincerity there, a depth of gratitude that he couldn't ignore. He thought of Lily, of her future, of the struggles he faced every day just to keep them afloat. Maybe, just maybe, having someone like Eleanor in his corner wouldn't be such a bad thing. He sighed. "All right," he said finally. "I promise. But only if you promise to call me Ben, not Mr. Tanner." Eleanor smiled, a genuine, radiant smile that lit up her face. "Deal, Ben, and you must call me Eleanor." The wind howled outside, rattling the windows and shaking the trailer. But inside, a fragile sense of peace had settled. A promise had been made, a debt acknowledged. Ben knew, deep down, that this was more than just a simple act of kindness repaid. This was the beginning of something unexpected. 5 Rolls-Royces. The last gust of wind clawed at the trailer as Ben wrestled with a final strip of duct tape, sealing the window against the lingering blizzard. Exhaustion tugged at him, but the thought of Lily sleeping soundly just a few feet away spurred him on. Satisfied, he wiped the grime from his hands onto his jeans and leaned against the wall, listening to the wind's mournful cry slowly fade. Dawn arrived subtly, painting the snow-covered landscape in hues of pale lavender and rose. The storm had passed, leaving behind a world transformed. Sunlight glinted off the pristine snow, turning the mundane into something magical. Ben woke to the smell of Lily's pretend coffee. She was humming to herself, arranging her stuffed animals around a small, upturned crate. "Morning, sleepyhead," she chirped, her eyes sparkling like the freshly fallen snow. "The storm is gone. Can we build a snowman?" Ben stretched, his muscles protesting the previous day's labor. "After breakfast, peanut. Let's see what kind of damage we have first." He glanced out the window, expecting to see the usual disarray of their small yard, scattered tools, the rusting husk of an old lawnmower. Instead, he froze. Parked neatly in a row, gleaming under the morning sun, were 5 Rolls-Royce automobiles. Each one was a different color: a deep sapphire blue, a classic silver, a rich burgundy, an elegant pearl white, and a striking emerald green. They looked utterly incongruous against the backdrop of Ben's dilapidated trailer and the surrounding snow-covered scrubland. What are those?" he stammered, his voice barely a whisper. Lily, ever the pragmatist, skipped to the window and pressed her face against the glass. Her eyes widened. "Wow, those are fancy cars, Dad. Are they for us?" Ben shook his head, disoriented. "Don't be silly, Lily. They must be lost. Or maybe they're filming a commercial." But even as he said the words, he knew it was unlikely. This was nowhere near any established film location. He cautiously opened the trailer door, a blast of crisp, cold air hitting him in the face. The silence was almost deafening, broken only by the distant caw of a crow. He stepped outside, squinting against the glare of the sun on the snow. The cars were real. He walked towards the nearest one, the sapphire blue, and ran a gloved hand over its perfectly polished hood. The metal was cold and solid. "Dad, can we sit in one?" Lily asked, bouncing excitedly beside him, bundled in her warmest coat and hat. Ben hesitated. "I don't think that's a good idea, Peanut. These probably belong to someone very important. We don't want to scratch them." He scanned the area, searching for any sign of the owners, but there was no one to be seen. A figure detached itself from the driver's side of the emerald green Rolls-Royce. It was a man in a dark suit and sunglasses, holding a clipboard. He approached Ben with a polite but formal air. "Mr. Tanner?" he inquired, his voice smooth and professional. Ben nodded slowly, his confusion deepening. "Yes. Ms. Ainsworth sends her regards," the man said, without a hint of irony. "These vehicles are for you." Ben stared at him, speechless. "For me? All of them?" He gestured incredulously at the line of luxury cars. "There must be some mistake." The man consulted his clipboard. "No mistake, Mr. Tanner. These are yours, as a token of Ms. Ainsworth's gratitude for your assistance yesterday." He paused, then added, "The keys and documentation are inside each vehicle. Choose whichever one you prefer, and the others will be relocated." Lily gasped. "We get to pick one, Dad?" Can we? Can we? Her eyes were shining brighter than the chrome on the Rolls-Royces. The green one. I like the green one. Ben felt a knot of anxiety tighten in his stomach. This was too much. It was absurd. He couldn't accept something like this. But looking at Lily's hopeful face, he faltered. He knew how much a reliable car would change their lives, and the possibilities flooded his mind. "Wait a minute," he said, his voice rising slightly. "I don't understand. Why 5 cars? And why Rolls-Royces?" The man in the suit simply smiled, a practiced, enigmatic expression. "Ms. Ainsworth believes in exceeding expectations, Mr. Tanner. Have a pleasant day." He turned and walked back to the emerald green Rolls-Royce, leaving Ben standing dumbfounded in the snow, with 5 luxury cars and a very excited little girl. An offer he can't refuse. Ben wrestled another nail home, the aged timber of the window frame emitting a pained squeal. He worked to seal the draft, a largely symbolic gesture against the lingering bite of the wind, a spectral keen despite the blizzard's official departure. Lily, perched on the threadbare armchair, kicked her heels, a book ignored in her lap. Her gaze was riveted to the cluster of Rolls-Royces squatting on their churned earth front yard. "Dad," she ventured, her voice a fragile thread against the wind's mournful song. "Think you should call the cops?" Ben scrubbed his brow with a grimy rag, leaving a smudge. "Tell them what, Lilybug? Some swells dumped $500,000 worth of metal on my property? They locked me up." A rap at the flimsy door reverberated through the trailer, making them jump. Cautiously, Ben pulled it open, finding Eleanor Ainsworth on the stoop. Flanking her were 2 men, granite-faced and clad in impeccably cut dark coats that seemed ludicrously opulent against the backdrop of their dilapidated home. "Mr. Tanner?" Eleanor inquired, her crisp British cadence a lingering echo of yesterday's storm. "Might we step inside? It remains rather brisk." He hesitated, then conceded with a wave, allowing them entrance. The trailer shrunk further, the air now thick with a palpable tension mingled with the ever-present scent of oil and damp. Eleanor's escorts stood sentinel near the door, radiating discomfort. "Mr. Tanner, please forgive yesterday's unorthodox introduction," Eleanor began, her gaze taking in their meager surroundings. "Permit me to introduce myself properly. I'm Eleanor Ainsworth, and these are my colleagues, Mr. Davies and Mr. Harding." She indicated the men, who offered barely perceptible nods. "Look, Ms. Ainsworth," Ben said, his voice gravelly. "I appreciate the assist during the storm, but those cars, it's way too much. I can't keep them." Eleanor's smile blossomed, a genuine warmth that banished the severity from her features. "Please call me Eleanor. And believe me, Mr. Tanner, this extends beyond mere gratitude. I own Ainsworth Automotive." Ben stared, momentarily robbed of speech. Ainsworth Automotive? A titan of the industry, their names synonymous with automotive dreams and innovation. He drooled over their concept vehicles behind velvet ropes at auto shows. "I observed you working on my car yesterday," Eleanor pressed, her eyes alight. "Your ingenuity, your deftness, remarkable. You pinpointed and resolved a complex problem that would have confounded most technicians. And you accomplished this during a whiteout with primitive tools, all while caring for your daughter." Lily preened, a tiny swell of pride lifting her chest. Eleanor tilted her head toward the girl. "You possess a remarkably bright and resourceful daughter, Mr. Tanner. I suspect she proved your greatest asset yesterday." "She usually is," Ben affirmed, a flicker of paternal pride warming his tone. Eleanor refocused on Ben, her expression now earnest. "Mr. Tanner, I'm more than just a rescued motorist. I'm an entrepreneur. I recognize potential, and I believe you embody a unique blend of mechanical aptitude, analytical skill, and unwavering honesty. That's precisely why I am here, to extend a job offer." Ben knitted his brow, confusion clouding his face. "A job? Doing what exactly?" "I'm expanding my operations," Eleanor elucidated. "I am developing a specialized workshop devoted exclusively to the restoration and preservation of classic Ainsworth models. and I desire you to oversee it. Lead mechanic with complete authority. You would manage a small, hand-picked team, directing every facet of the restoration process. Ben's inner landscape churned. Lead mechanic? At Ainsworth Automotive? A ludicrous fantasy, implausible. He had spent his years coaxing life from jalopies and beaters, barely managing to stay afloat. This was an entirely different realm. I don't know what to say, he stammered, taken aback. Say yes. Lily piped up, her eyes sparkling with unrestrained enthusiasm. Please, Dad, say yes. Eleanor's smile widened. The remuneration, naturally, will reflect the significance of the role. More than sufficient to ensure a comfortable future for both you and Lily. Full medical coverage, comprehensive retirement plan, the complete package. Ben's gaze darted between Eleanor and Lily, then back again. He discerned the sincerity in her gaze, the profound belief in his capabilities. This was not mere charity. It represented an opportunity, a pathway to escape the relentless cycle of hardship and forge a more secure future for Lily. But it simultaneously demanded severing ties with everything familiar, venturing into uncharted, unfamiliar territory. The cars, he managed, his voice a dry rasp. They're part of this offer, Eleanor affirmed. Consider them a gesture of goodwill, or perhaps implement for your trade. You will, after all, require transportation. And, she appended with a playful wink, they certainly will make a statement. Ben swallowed hard, the lump in his throat almost choking him. It was an offer impossible to decline. But could he place his trust in it? Could he place his trust in her? The weight of a decision. A mournful wind keened around the trailer, rattling the loose window Ben struggled to seal. Each gust felt like a jeer at his wavering resolve, a chorus of the anxieties already gnawing at him. Eleanor Ainsworth's proposition, so audacious, so impossibly grand, clung to him like the bone-deep cold radiating from the paper-thin walls. He pressed the cocking gun harder, the sharp scent a momentary reprieve from the mental maelstrom. The Ainsworth Restoration Workshop, a chance to truly exercise his talent, not just bandage the ailments of aging vehicles hoping to survive another freeze. A chance for Lily, a shot at a future. But Pine Ridge was his anchor. Familiar, secure, predictable. He knew every imperfection in the asphalt, every groan of the aging structure, every face he encountered. To leave was to leap into uncertainty, to place his trust in a woman he scarcely knew, a woman who inhabited a sphere so remote from his own it felt like an alien landscape. Dad! Lily's small, clear voice sliced through his turmoil. She stood in the doorway, clutching her tattered copy of Matilda. A worried frown etched her brow. You're going to break the tube if you squeeze that hard. He eased his grip, a self-conscious smile tugging at his mouth. Sorry, Squirt. Just preoccupied. About the job? Her eyes shone with an eagerness that both gladdened and disturbed him. He nodded, wiping his hands on a scrap of cloth. It's a weighty choice, Lilybug. It affects both of us. She hopped on a counter, her legs swinging. But it's an incredible chance. Imagine all the possibilities. We could explore museums, visit actual castles, maybe even master French. Her imagination, vibrant as ever, leapt beyond the confines of their limited existence. French, he chuckled, the sound a little strained. Hold your horses, kiddo. It won't be all smooth sailing. It'll be demanding work. And a new town for both of us, a new school, a new everything. I'm not afraid of fresh starts, Dad. You always say I'm bold. She straightened her small frame, striking a pose reminiscent of Eleanor Ainsworth's inherent grace. Besides, you're the best mechanic anywhere. You deserve to work on something more complex than Mrs. Henderson's wheezing mower. He tousled her hair, his heart brimming with a mixture of affection and trepidation. She painted it as so simple, so obvious. But life, he understood, rarely adhered to such a direct path. Later, as twilight streaked the sky with shades of plum and slate, Ben found himself drawn to the old Fitzwilliam place. Fitz, a seasoned mechanic whose hands were as knotted as the roots of an ancient tree, had been his guide, his confidant, for as long as Ben could recall. His garage, a vibrant jumble of tools, engines, and oil-stained cloths, was his refuge, a space where the thrum of machinery eclipsed the clamor of the external world. Fitz was bent low over a disassembled carburetor, his brow furrowed in concentration. The air hung heavy with the familiar perfume of oil and gasoline, a comforting constant in Ben's life. "Evening, Fitz," Ben greeted, his voice barely audible above the syncopated clatter of a stray wrench. Fitz straightened, his eyes, magnified by thick lenses, glinting with recognition. "Ben, what brings you out on a night like this? I figured you'd be holed up, fighting the storm." "Needed some counsel," Ben admitted, his gaze drawn to a polished crankshaft suspended from the ceiling. Fitz wiped his hands on a rag, a habitual gesture Ben knew well. "Counsel, huh? That usually means trouble's brewing." Ben recounted Eleanor's offer, the breadth of the opportunity, the gravity of the decision. He bared his aspirations, his anxieties, his reservations. Fitz listened intently, his expression inscrutable, the only sound the steady tick-tock of an antique clock tucked into a corner of the garage. When Ben was finished, Fitz remained silent for a long moment, his gaze lost in the distance, as if peering into the very essence of Ben's being. Finally, he spoke, his voice gravelly but resolute. "Life's about seizing opportunities, Ben. Settling down is safe, no doubt, but safe isn't always the same as truly living. You possess a gift, son, a rare one. Don't allow it to atrophy in this town." He paused, his gaze locking with Ben's. "And never lose sight of who you're doing it for. That daughter of yours deserves every advantage you can give her." A leap of faith. Ben smoothed a bead of fresh sealant along the window frame, the wind a ravenous beast gnawing at the trailer. The flimsy panes vibrated despite his efforts, a stark contrast to the domestic scene inside. He glanced at Lily, a small figure immersed in a book about astrophysics on the threadbare couch. Her well-loved telescope lay nearby, a symbol of aspirations that strained against the confines of Pine Ridge. He yearned to foster those dreams, a feat that felt increasingly impossible within their predictable, limited existence. Lamplight danced on her face, highlighting a bright intelligence that deserved more than the local school's meager offerings, her potential dimmed by their financial straits. Fitz's words resonated. He couldn't allow his anxieties, his stubborn independence, to chain her down. He possessed a rare skill, a key to unlocking opportunities for them both. And Eleanor Ainsworth had presented him with a lock to pick. He cleared his throat, the sound amplified in the cramped space. Lily looked up, curiosity bright in her eyes. "Lily Bug," he began, the familiar term feeling suddenly significant. "Remember that proposition I mentioned? From the lady with the fast car?" She nodded, a tremor of hope underlying her reply. "The one where you get to tinker with awesome engines, and we might move." He settled beside her, taking her small hand. "Well, after much deliberation and a talking to from Fitz, I've decided to accept." Her eyes widened, a spark of disbelief mingling with elation. "Really, Dad? You're serious?" He squeezed her hand. "Serious. It's a huge step, Lilybug, into uncharted territory. It won't be easy, but it's the right thing to do. For you. For us." He swallowed, emotion constricting his throat. "I'm done just surviving, Lily. I want to build something lasting." A slow smile blossomed on her face, erasing the shadows of worry he had noticed lately. She launched herself at him, hugging him fiercely. "Oh, Dad," she exclaimed, her voice muffled. "That's wonderful. I knew you'd do it." He held her tight, breathing in the comforting scent of her hair. "There'll be adjustments," he said, his voice thick. "A new school, a new place to live, a whole new beginning. We'll manage it together," she replied, pulling back, her gaze unwavering. "Like always." She paused, a slight frown creasing her brow. "But what about Pine Ridge? And Mrs. Davison?" "We'll visit," he reassured her, giving her hand another squeeze. "And we'll stay in touch. And we'll meet new people too, Lilybug. It'll be an adventure. A grand, maybe a little frightening adventure." He stood, a surge of renewed vitality coursing through him. The wind still roared outside, but now it sounded less menacing, more like a call to action. He walked to the window, his gaze fixed not on patching the cracks, but on the distant horizon. He remained wary of Eleanor Ainsworth, unsure of her motivations. However, he trusted his instincts, and above all, he trusted his daughter. And for the first time in what felt like an eternity, a spark of hope flickered within him, a delicate light against the tempestuous winds. He was leaping into the unknown, not just for himself, but for Lily, and that changed everything. Goodbye, Pine Ridge. The wind howled, a mournful cry that rattled the windows. Ben pressed a bead of sealant along the frame, his breath clouding the glass. Just in time, he muttered, glancing at the swirling snow outside. Another blizzard brewing. Lily, perched on a wobbly stool, meticulously packed her books into a cardboard box. Think they have a good library where we're going, Dad? Eleanor said the town's bigger than Pine Ridge, Ben replied, tightening the lid on a jar of spare screws. Bound to have a decent library. Maybe even two. Lily grinned, her eyes sparkling. Two. Imagine all the stories. The trailer felt smaller than usual, crammed with boxes overflowing with their lives. Clothes, toys, kitchen utensils. Everything they owned, neatly compartmentalized and ready for the road. Ben felt a pang of guilt, looking at the bare walls where Lily's drawings once hung. He'd promised her more than this, a real home, not a glorified tin can clinging to the edge of nowhere. Almost done, kiddo. Just gotta find Mr. Snuggles, Lily said, rummaging through a pile of blankets. Can't leave him behind. Mr. Snuggles, a one-eared, perpetually grinning teddy bear, was eventually unearthed and given pride of place in Lily's backpack. With a final sweep of the trailer, they were ready. The next morning dawned gray and unforgiving, the world buried under a thick blanket of snow. Ben fired up the truck, its engine protesting the cold with a series of coughs and sputters. Lily, bundled in her warmest coat and hat, waved goodbye to the trailer as they pulled away. Their first stop was the diner, a Pine Ridge institution. The aroma of frying bacon and strong coffee hung heavy in the air. Mrs. Henderson, her face etched with concern, fussed over them, piling their plates high with pancakes. You take care now, Ben, she said, patting his hand. And you, Lily, you be a good girl. Lily, mouth full of pancake, nodded solemnly. We will, Mrs. Henderson. We'll miss your pancakes. Ben swallowed hard, the diner a familiar comfort in a life that was about to change drastically. He knew he'd miss the easy camaraderie, the predictable rhythms of small-town life. Their final stop was Fitzwilliam's workshop. The old man was tinkering with an engine, his hands blackened with grease. He looked up as they entered, a rare smile gracing his weathered face. Heard you're off to bigger things, Ben, Fitzwilliam said, wiping his hands on a rag. Trying to Fitz, Ben replied, feeling a lump forming in his throat. Wouldn't be here without you. Fitzwilliam waved his hand dismissively. Nonsense. You had in you all along. Just needed a little nudge. He looked at Lily, his eyes softening. You take care of your dad, young lady. Make sure he doesn't get too big for his britches. Lily giggled, hugging Fitzwilliam's leg. I will, and I'll write you letters. Ben extended his hand, and Fitzwilliam gripped it firmly. Go on now, the old man said, his voice gruff. Don't want you getting stuck in this weather. As they drove away, Ben glanced in the rearview mirror. Fitzwilliam stood in the doorway of his workshop, a solitary figure against the backdrop of the snow-covered landscape. Ben gave a short honk of the horn, a final farewell to his mentor, his friend, a piece of his past he was leaving behind. Are you sad, Dad? Lily asked, her voice small. Ben took a deep breath, a little lily-bug, but mostly excited. This is a new adventure for both of us. Lily leaned against his arm, her small hand squeezing his. I'm excited too, she whispered. I think it's going to be great. As Pine Ridge receded into the distance, swallowed by the swirling snow, Ben felt a surge of hope. The road ahead was uncertain, but he had Lily, his talent, and a chance to build a better life. He pressed down on the accelerator, leaving behind the familiar comforts of Pine Ridge and driving towards an unknown future. The wheels of the truck crunched on the snow-covered road, each turn taking them further away from the past and closer to the promise of a new beginning. Engines of the future. The machinery's steady thrum had become Ben's new constant companion. Gone was the wind's mournful howl through the cracks of his former life. He now inhabited the controlled atmosphere of Ainsworth Automotive. The air, thick with the aroma of lubricants and steel, possessed a refined edge, subtly perfumed by the rich, imported leather adorning the car interiors. He hadn't anticipated such a seamless assimilation. Eleanor, true to her unexpected word, refrained from interference, simply introducing him to his colleagues, ensuring he possessed the necessary instruments, and then granting him autonomy. The onus was on him to prove his mettle, and he did. Years of necessity, coupled with a burning passion, had forged an innate understanding of engines that rapidly proved indispensable. He wasn't just resolving malfunctions. He foresaw them, discovering methods to enhance the existing designs, refining the classic engines for augmented efficiency and dependability, without compromising their intrinsic essence. He initiated contemporary diagnostic methodologies, expediting repairs and minimizing downtime. "You've got the touch, Ben," Mr. Abernathy, the venerable head mechanic, declared one afternoon, his voice gravelly from decades spent inhaling exhaust. "Don't squander it." Ben had no such intentions. His days stretched long, yet they brimmed with purpose. The challenge inherent in each novel undertaking, the gratification derived from breathing life back into long-dormant machines, invigorated him. He even began experimenting with novel alloys, investigating avenues to fuse timeless designs with cutting-edge innovation. Observing his commitment and inventiveness, Eleanor granted him carte blanche to explore his concepts. "The engines of tomorrow," she commented during a rare visit to the workshop, a fleeting smile gracing her lips, "built upon the bedrock of yesterday." Lily, too, was flourishing. The relocation had been transformative. She was now enrolled in a school boasting a well-stocked library, a science laboratory overflowing with intriguing equipment, and educators who seemed genuinely stimulated by her intellectual curiosity. Her vibrant personality and boundless zeal facilitated easy friendships. She positively bloomed. One afternoon, Ben discovered her engrossed in a notebook, brow furrowed in concentration. "What's up, sweetie?" he inquired, settling beside her on the opulent sofa in their new apartment. It was compact yet immaculate, a far cry from their previous cramped living quarters. "I'm trying to design a self-watering planter," she revealed, tucking a stray lock of hair behind her ear. "But I can't figure out how to power it without electricity." Ben scrutinized her drawing, his mind already buzzing with potential solutions. He recognized the gleam of ingenuity in her eyes. He devoted the next hour to her, sketching out diagrams, illustrating the underlying principles of capillary action and gravity-driven systems. Together, they honed her design, fabricating a miniature ecosystem self-sufficient in power. When their collaboration concluded, Lily gazed up at him, her face radiating pride. "Thanks, Dad," she expressed, enveloping him in a warm embrace. "You're the best." He returned the hug, a wave of affection washing over him. It transcended the self-watering planter. It was about the newfound capacity to cultivate her aptitudes, to furnish her with the instruments essential for forging her own path. It was about affording her the caliber of existence that remained beyond his own grasp. Later, as Lily slumbered, Ben sat by the window, observing the distant city lights shimmer. He pondered Pine Ridge, Mrs. Henderson, Fitzwilliam, and the life he had relinquished. A brief wave of homesickness, a subtle yearning for the comfortable familiarity of his old life, surfaced. Then his gaze swept across the apartment, landing on the sketches strewn across the table, the books lining the shelves, the snapshots of Lily laughing amongst her new companions. He considered his work, the trials he faced, and the prospects that awaited. He realized he had made the right choice. He had embarked on a leap of faith, fueled by optimism and the aspiration to secure a brighter future for his daughter. Against all odds, it had succeeded. His purpose now extended beyond simply repairing vehicles. He was constructing a future, their future, all thanks to a chance meeting on a snow-laden night, with a woman who perceived potential within him that he himself had been blind to. He still grappled with understanding Eleanor Ainsworth's motivations, yet he remained eternally indebted for the opportunity she had extended. He smiled, a genuine, heartfelt smile that illuminated his eyes. The engines of tomorrow, he mused. They were running, and they were running powerfully.